23 Racing and Fast Motorsports have won their preliminary injunction case that will race as charter teams in 2025, and Zane Smith is so likely headed to Fast Motorsports in 2025. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports story discusser today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just show them straight really quickly. First, going to take a look at a couple paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Jesse Love's 2025 wheeling scheme that will see through majority of 2025. This scheme looks very similar to the last couple years of wheeling, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of times where consistency can be a good thing. It looks really awesome. Looking forward to see it out on the racetrack. And the last paint schemes we're taking a look at are Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Ryan Preece's 2025 Epsilon schemes that we'll see throughout the 2025 season. Again, not much change from 2024. They've got different ones, it looks like, throughout the year. They do look all right, though. We'll see how they can do in these paint schemes in 2025. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mohawk Northeast. As it was announced a couple days ago that Mohawk Northeast will sponsor Ryan Preece in 2025 for 3 races. Mohawk Northeast has been a loyal sponsor of Ryan Preece since around 2022 when he drove in the Craftsman Truck Series, and they also sponsored for a few races in Cup competition in 2023 and 2024. So it's really good to see that Mohawk Northeast is falling over with this number 60 team in 2025. I gotta say the car they chose looked really solid. I think did a really good job on it, and I'm definitely looking forward to see it out on the track. But I think it's pretty cool they're going ahead and bring him in. Good to see that Mohawk will sponsor him in 2025. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Lionel. As it was reported by Jeff Gluck that the top 10 diecast sellers for Lionel have been revealed for 2025. And first, you had Dale Jr.'s Budweiser late model. And second, you had Chase Elliott's Hooters Texas win. Third, Kyle Larson's HendrickCars.com throwback, which is throwback to Terry Labonte. Fourth, William Byron's Daytona 500 win. In fifth, you had Brad Keselowski's Castro throwback when he ran that Tom throwback. Sixth, you had Corey LaJoie's Chili's Ride to Win scheme. Seventh, you have Kyle Larson's Indianapolis win, where, of course, he did drive that scheme that he was going to run the Hendrick 1100 in. Eighth, you have Chase Elliott's Hooters scheme. Ninth, you have one of Tyler Reddick's schemes, I think the Jordan Brand scheme, I'm pretty sure. And in number 10, you had Joey Logano's, I believe it's championship win for 2024. Overall, I think the biggest surprise probably has to be Joey Logano being on there, but the other big surprise is definitely Corey LaJoie, considering that Corey LaJoie is no longer at the team and organization. I think that is definitely a little bit surprising for sure. Other than that, not many major surprises there. Obviously, Junior, Elliott, Larson, Byron, all these drivers are certainly popular. Not the most surprised by some of them, but at the same token, same time, some of them are definitely surprising for sure, in my honest and sincere opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're unfortunately taking this episode to a sour note. As unfortunately, sadly, was confirmed on Wednesday that Fred Lorenzen has sadly passed away at the age of 89 years old. Fred Lorenzen, for those who do not know, was a legend of the sport, a pioneer. He won a lot of races in the 60s. He won the Daytona 500 in 1965. And what's interesting is his win percentage is like a 26.3%, which is one of the best winning percentages we've seen from drivers in the history of the sport. Prayers and condolences do go out to the Lorenzen family during this time. A tragic and sad day for the sport. Fred Lorenzen, sadly, was 89 years old. Like I said, my prayers and condolences do go out to the Lorenzen family during this tragic and sincere time. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Josh Bilicki. As it was announced on Wednesday evening that Josh Bilicki will be running the 2025 Chili Bowl Nationals. Josh Bilicki has made select starts in the Chili Bowl over the course of the last couple of years. He will drive for Chase McDermott's team this upcoming time around. He is joining a very elite group of drivers who will be running the Chili Bowl. Guys like Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, I believe Ty Gibbs, I believe Chase Briscoe also is going to enter, among many other big names like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kaylee Lee Bryson, and many other big names that have announced their plans for 2025. I don't expect Josh Bilicki to be a major threat and serious contender throughout the event. I just really don't have any high expectations for him, but this is a fantastic opportunity to see that he's going to run the Chili Bowl. I think he'll be very competitive. I think he'll certainly be very, very fast if he can be in the event, but there's a lot of great competition, and I think it will hurt him if he can't make it through. We'll see what he can end up doing in the event in 2025 at the Chili Bowl Nationals. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Bowman Gray. As Bowman Gray put out a tweet showing that renovations are getting closer to being done for the Clash at Bowman Gray. Remember, the Clash at Bowman Gray is just 47 days from today. We're less than 2 months from the start of the 2025 NASCAR season. And of course, NASCAR will be going to having the Clash at Bowman Gray on February the 2nd. Obviously, they need to get the renovations done. We've seen a lot of things with the track so far. They brought some stuff, I believe, from the Los Angeles Coliseum to the track. Some of the safer barrier that they are using, they brought to the track. They've also set up a lot of catch fencing, and they're getting very close to having the track ready to go. They have to add all this stuff for safety reasons. I know some people who like the old charm of Bowman Gray are not going to be happy with the moves they're making here, but you've got to do it for safety. That is the most important thing. If you can't bring safety stuff in, a lot of legal stuff could come into play, and a lot of lawsuits can happen as well. And I don't think NASCAR wants to have a lot of lawsuits, considering the fact they're currently in a lawsuit at the moment. So obviously there are things that they need to do to make sure the track is up to snuff and up to par, which is why some of the safety things they've done had to happen, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Valtteri Bottas. As it was announced yesterday morning that Valtteri Bottas is going to be the reserve driver for Mercedes in 2025. This has been expected. There's been a lot of speculation and a lot of rumors that Valtteri was going to go back to the Mercedes group for 2025. He will take the place of Mick Schumacher, who I believe will be competing full-time in the World Endurance Championship and focusing on that in 2025. Valtteri Bottas, of course, is a former working relationship with Mercedes. Of course, he drove for Mercedes for many, many years and had quite a bit of success, actually. I think he won 7 or 8 Formula One races with Mercedes, and now being the reserve driver for the team, I think is a really good move for his career, especially one of the drivers of the team has something happen, like Kimi, or, of course, issues for George Russell. He's there to help the team, and I think he'll be able to help set their stuff up and do some testing for the team as well. So I think this is a really, really good move for Mercedes to bring him in, and I do think that this team can have a lot of success going forward down the road. So I like this move. I think it's a good change to go ahead and bring him in. I'm pretty happy and glad to see that Valtteri Bottas will get to go ahead and work as a reserve driver for Mercedes in 2025. Really exciting and awesome stuff. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Isack Hadjar. As it was announced early this morning that Isack Hadjar will be joining Racing Bulls in Formula One in 2025, replacing Liam Lawson, who we're going to talk about here in just a short little bit. Isack has been heavily rumored to be joining the Racing Bull teams for 2025. Of course, he is heavily associated with the Red Bull program, and people in Formula One, in the Formula One world, are very, very high on Isack Hadjar. Now, what are the expectations for Isack going into the 2025 Formula One season? Realistically, I just think that he is going to run, I think, very solidly. I think there's definitely some potential for sure. And let's say that Liam Lawson does somehow go ahead and struggle at Red Bull next year. If Isack runs well enough, he could go to Red Bull, but I'm not sure they're going to get rid of Liam Lawson over there, especially after a season, even though they've done it before. So Isack is definitely going to have a lot of pressure going into this year. I think points need to be the goal. If this team can really step up and run great, I could definitely see him having a chance to go to Red Bull down the road into the next couple of years. Will that happen? I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's a fantastic and really great opportunity for Isack. I think he will be somewhat competitive especially, and I think there's a good chance and opportunity for him to run up front. We'll see what he can do with the Racing Bulls organization in 2025. He's going to need some good luck, trust me. Hopefully he can do very well with the organization in 2025 with Racing Bulls this upcoming year and this upcoming season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. As it was confirmed yesterday that Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, the track and facility improvements and renovations they have done have finally been complete for the 2025 year. Mid-Ohio has been doing a lot of renovations to the track, some safety improvements, I think some extra catch fencing around the track, and I believe they've also repaved the track in the last year or so as well. This is one of the reasons why the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and even ARCA, I believe, are not racing there in 2025 because they're working on renovations. This could lead them to going back to the track in 2026, but it's unknown at this point. Mid-Ohio, a legendary racetrack. It's been around for many, many years. I think since even the 50s and 60s at this point. Some of the areas on the track were outdated and they need to make improvements to the track. That's why they went ahead and gone and done it. To me, I think it's good they've got the renovations done. They've got the track improvements ready to go for the season. And I think it's good to see that Mid-Ohio has been updated for 2025. Very happy about it and glad to see that everything has been officially set and ready to go for them in the 2025 year. Good to see everything is officially set for the team this upcoming season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Garrett Smithley. As it was announced yesterday that Garrett Smithley will join SS Greenlight Racing full-time in 2025, driving a number 14 car. Garrett Smithley has raced in NASCAR competition for nearly a decade at this point, and this I believe will be the first time that Garrett has been full-time, I think since like 2021 or 2022. He's been racing sporadically over the course of the last couple of years for teams like SS Greenlight, teams like Rick Ware, and other organizations in NASCAR's top competitions over the course of the last couple of years and seasons. This is going to be a really decent opportunity, though SS Greenlight Racing is not one of the top tier teams and organizations on the NASCAR front. So what are the realistic expectations for Garrett Smithley in 2025? Realistically, I think he's going to finish at the back of the pack most races. Not because I don't think Garrett Smithley is talented. I think he does have a little bit of talent behind him. But I just think with the equipment that he's currently in for this upcoming season, I just do not expect much from him in 2025. Again, I think the goal is going to be top 25 in the standings. I think it's going to be very, very low goals for 2025, but I do think that there are definitely some things that he will be able to accomplish, hopefully, but I'm not really thinking he's going to set the world on fire this upcoming season just because of the fact he's not going to be in the most competitive seat for the upcoming year, so we'll see how he ends up doing, but again, I'm not expecting him to set the world on fire in 2025, unfortunately. I think it's going to be a little bit of a up and down season for the team this upcoming year. We'll see how he ends up doing, but trust me, like I said, I'm not expecting him to set the world on fire. I think he will struggle quite a bit throughout the year and through the season. We'll see what he can do with the organization in 2025 in the Xfinity Series. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Live Fast Motorsports. As it was confirmed yesterday, Live Fast Motorsports has officially announced their 2025 schedule for the upcoming year. They're going to run the Daytona 500. Then they're going to run Atlanta in the spring. Then they're going to run Talladega in the spring. Then they're going to run the Coca-Cola 600. After that, they'll run Atlanta in the summer on June 28th. Then the race at Daytona for the cutoff race, and they'll run at Talladega Super Speedway. Quintessentially, the schedule for 2025 for Live Fast is going to consist of every single Super Speedway race for the upcoming year and the Coca-Cola 600. Really interesting they brought someone in for the Coke 600. Now, obviously, they have not announced who the driver is going to be for that car this upcoming year. I'm leaning toward BJ driving every single race, including the Coca-Cola 600, considering he is the owner of the team, especially since they're not running any road course races this upcoming year, which is definitely really surprising considering Josh Bilicki does have experience with this car. I was a little surprised they're not putting him behind the wheel of that seat for the road course events especially. But then again, I think that them focusing on super speedways, that's going to put a lot of focus on the Daytona 500. Again, I think BJ will be the driver, and I think BJ should be the driver since he owns the team, and I think he does have talent as a race car driver. He's won a lot of races in late models and won a lot of races over the years, and it would be really awesome and great to see this team end up going to victory lane. Do I realistically think that they are going to go to victory lane next year? No, probably not. But I think it's a really great opportunity for the team this upcoming year to get this team back on the track for 2025. I realistically think they can be super competitive this year. We'll see how they end up doing, and we'll see if this team can run really strong and have a fantastic and good season. We'll see what happens. We'll see how things end up going, and we'll see if this team can run extremely well in 2025 on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about JD Motorsports. As Bob Pock responded to a question surrounding JD Motorsports, says we're going to talk about the number 4 car in just a short little bit. But according to what Bob was reporting, JD Motorsports is in the process of selling all of its cars and equipment due to their Chapter 11 bankruptcy and their liquidation. We talked about this on the channel about 4 or 5 months ago, but JD Motorsports pretty much has sold off everything, and they're no longer around currently at the moment due to having really a lot of issues with sponsorship and a lot of funding, and they're having a very difficult time attracting a lot of things they're looking for the 2025 season. And they were not able to keep everything going, and they were hoping to maybe come back in some way, shape, or form down the road. But judging by the fact they're selling everything, I think this is the end of JD Motorsports, which is very, very unfortunate because JD Motorsports, while this team wasn't the most successful organization, they've had drivers like Ross Chastain, and I remember Jesse Little being somewhat competitive with this team years ago. So it is quite a shame to see a team like JD Motorsports, who's been around for many, many years, no longer being in the sport. But at the same token, same time, it's also not the most shocking and surprising thing, right? Because we all kind of expected there probably going to be some things happening for next year. It is a shame, though, to see that this team is no longer going to be existing for 2025. But at the same token, same time, it's not really shocking. It's not the most surprising thing, and it did not surprise me to see this news, considering the fact that we were kind of expecting something to happen to the team as they were not going to be showing up to the track for 2025. Not the most shocking and surprising news, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Haas Factory Team. As there was reported by Joseph Strigley a couple days ago that it looks like Haas Factory Team has updated their fonts for all their cars for 2025. They've updated them for Cole Custer, who will drive the 41 for Haas Factory Team in Cup, and they've updated them for Sheldon Creed, who will drive the 00 for the team this upcoming year in Xfinity, and Sam Mayer in the number 41 car. They've updated all the logos for all 3 of the cars for 2025. It's a big change for this upcoming season, considering the fact they've basically had the same font for a long time, even I think back to the original start of Stewart-Haas, and even of course back to the original Haas team. But obviously Haas Factory is technically a new organization for the upcoming season. I gotta say the 00 and 41, they look alright in my opinion. They don't look absolutely amazing, but they do look alright. And there's definitely some good looks and some good sides to this as well. I think it's definitely certainly interesting for sure that they're changing up the logos for 2025. Again, I think they're certainly interesting. I think there is somewhat some creativity in them a little bit for sure, but I also understand why fans are a little bit frustrated they've gone ahead and changed it, because some people probably don't like change, which I completely understand because change always isn't the greatest thing, but to me sometimes you have to make changes for the better, and I certainly think it's very interesting they're making changes in that front, in that aspect for 2025 with their program for this upcoming season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kaulig Racing. As it was announced yesterday that Kaulig Racing has officially announced and unveiled their crew chief lineup for 2025. The crew chief for Daniel Dye is going to be Kevin Walter. For Josh Williams, it is going to be Eddie Pardue. And for Christian Eckes, it is going to be Alex Jans. Alex Jans, who I think is the best of these crew chiefs working with Christian Eckes in the flagship car. Not the most shocking and surprising. Alex Jans did, of course, get a win with AJ Allmendinger earlier this past season at Las Vegas Motor Speedway and was somewhat competitive. For Daniel Dye, good luck with Kevin Walter, because Kevin Walter did struggle with Shane Van Gisbergen throughout the year at the end of this season. I'm not really expecting Kevin Walter to do great things. He struggled with Josh Williams, so I'm not really expecting him to do a great job with Daniel Dye. And then you have Eddie Pardue. Eddie Pardue did okay with Josh Williams, so maybe they could gel a lot better together, but Josh Williams and Daniel Dye definitely have a lot of pressure. Going into this season, I definitely do think that Christian Eckes has the advantage compared to the other two. I think he's the more talented of the 3, and I think of the 3 drivers, the most likely to make the playoffs is a combination of Alex Jans and Christian Eckes. I think these two are going to gel so well together throughout this upcoming year and upcoming season, and I think that the Kaulig crew chief lineup is definitely very interesting for sure. I think, again, they are going to be somewhat competitive throughout the year. Hopefully they can run very good, because I want to see this team be really competitive this upcoming season, because Kaulig Racing had a down year. If it wasn't for Shane Van Gisbergen getting 3 road course victories in AJ getting a win and making the championship 4, it would have been a terrible season for the team. So hopefully this team can run a lot better this upcoming year and upcoming season. We'll see what they can do. We'll see if the performance can come in and they could truly run really, really strong. We'll see how this team truly ends up doing in the 2025 NASCAR Xfinity Series season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brandon Jones. Now, we haven't really officially had any confirmation on what number he was going to be using for 2025. We obviously knew that Williams Watch was going to be driving number 18 and Taylor Gray will be driving the number 54. But there's been a lot of talk that Brandon Jones could drive the number 19 car in 2025. Well, it seems like that's not going to be the case for this upcoming season. According to NASCAR Rumor Nostalgia and a couple other people, it sounds like the number that Brandon Jones is going to end up using is the number 20. The number 20 number was, of course, the number that was used for the All-Star car in 2024 when Eric Almirola, who got suspended partway through the year, won a couple races in that car. Ryan Truex got 2 victories in the number 20, and then, of course, you had drivers like John Hunter Nemechek and Christopher Bell also get victories in that car throughout the year and the season. And now they're giving the number 20 to Brandon Jones, who, of course, is the most experienced driver. So if he's getting number 20, what is the All-Star number going to be? Is it going to be the number 19? I'd have to think that is most likely going to be the number. It could still be 81 that Chandler Smith used, who we still don't know what he's officially doing yet for 2025, even though it's going to be with Richard Childress Racing. Again, we still are waiting for it to get officially confirmed from Joe Gibbs Racing, but judging by this, I think it is going to be number 20. I think that's realistically what the number is going to be for 2025. And I think the number 20 does make sense to keep it in the team. The 20's been part of Joe Gibbs Racing since 1999. If you go back not just their Xfinity but Cup days as well with Tony Stewart, it makes a lot of sense to bring the number 20 back for this upcoming season. It's interesting for sure. We'll wait to kind of see what happens, and we'll wait to see what their confirmation is. But like I said, it's very likely that the number 20 is going to be the number they end up using for 2025 for Joe Gibbs Racing for Brandon Jones this upcoming year and season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the top prospects for 2025. Now, yesterday, Motorsports.com's Nick DeGroot put out a really interesting tweet talking about who are some of the major top prospects for the 2025 season. His top 10 are number 1 being Conor Daly, number 2, Corey Heim, number 3, Christian Eckes, number 4, Carson Quaffle, number 5, Jesse Love, number 6, Roger Caruth. Number 7, Nick Sanchez. Number 8, William Sawalich. Number 9, Caden Honeycutt. And number 10, Taylor Gray. This is certainly a very interesting list. Number 1, I think Conor Daly being number 1, I completely agree with. Conor Daly, World 24 winner with LMP2, Sebring 12-hour winner with LMP2. He's going to be really strong this upcoming season with Junior Motorsports. Corey Heim being number 2. A couple years ago, he'd be number 1 with how good Conor Daly has been this year. I think it makes a lot of sense to put Corey number 2. Christian number 3, completely agree with. I've got him in my top 3. Christian, one of the best young prospects out there. Very talented race car driver. I think he's going to be someone to watch more in Xfinity competition this year. Carson Quaffle will be number 4. Certainly very interesting, but Carson is certainly a very talented race car driver, right? He's a guy that's shown a lot of potential in Xfinity competition. There's definitely some questions on how he's going to do on the intermediates this year, but I think he will be competitive. Then you've got Jesse Love in 5th. Makes sense. One of the best young prospects we've seen in recent years. He's going to be really strong with RCR again. Raja top 10. I think it's a good decision. Maybe move him a little bit down below Nick Sanchez, who's 7th, but Raja pretty good. Then you got Nick Sanchez in my top 10, definitely for sure. Sawalich, not sure about being in the top 10 yet. I just don't know how he's going to do this year, to be honest. Caden Honeycutt being number 9, he should be in the top 10. He should be ahead of William Sawalich. I think he's got more talent than William personally, and I think he's a really good young driver. And then you have, like I said, you have Taylor Gray. Taylor Gray, I think, is going to be pretty competitive this year with Joe Gibbs Racing, but I also think there's some work that's going to have to be done this year to see how he truly ends up performing this year. Obviously, people like Haley Deegan did not get mentioned. Lane Riggs did not get mentioned. Other names did not get mentioned on the list. I think Lane Riggs should have been considered for this list too. I think he's got a lot of potential, and I think he's a really good prospect as well. So we'll see how all these prospects end up doing. I'm looking for Conor Daly and Corey Heim to stay in their top 2 positions this upcoming year. So I think both of them are going to be very strong and very competitive this upcoming year and upcoming season. And now we're going to ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Conor Daly. As it was announced a couple days ago, that Conor Daly will officially be joining Juncos Hollinger Racing in 2025. I believe either the number 77 or the number 78 car. He has been the rumored driver to most likely go to this team full-time in 2025 and will replace Romain Grosjean, who is expected to go to IMSA for a majority of 2025 and race with Lamborghini, but could make select starts in IndyCar in 2025. Conor is bringing a little bit of sponsorship funding. I don't know if Polka Dot is coming through to sponsor him this upcoming year. I know he was talking about going to Sam Hunt Racing for the 2025 season, but I think this move makes a ton of sense in my opinion. At the end of the year, I think that Conor Daly, who filled in, of course, for Agustin Canapino in many races at the end of this season, Conor Daly going to this team makes a lot of sense. And you compare it to the two drivers who are on the team this upcoming season, Conor's definitely the better driver. His teammate Stingray Robb, on the other hand, I really question why they're bringing him into the team this year. Really, the big reason has to be funding and sponsorship, right? That's why they're bringing him in. For Conor, I think he's going to be super strong on the ovals. We know he's going to be a guy that's going to be very competitive and very fast and quick on the ovals. Road course, though, he's never been the best road course racer. He's never really ran that great at road courses, so I think there are some struggles that are going to come the way. And I think this team, outside of some really strong oval runs, I think Juncos Hollinger will be one of the worst teams out there. If you had Romain Grosjean, I think that if you had Romain there, he probably would have been super competitive enough to keep up on the road courses, but I understand why they made the move to put Conor Daly in, and obviously there seemed to be some bad blood, and I know that Romain had been certainly frustrated with IndyCar. He's not the happiest with IndyCar currently at the moment, which can you blame him at this point? They kind of ousted him from that, and I know he's been kind of a little bit outspoken about how he feels about IndyCar currently at the moment, which again is not the most shocking and the most surprising thing to see him mad, upset, and certainly frustrated about it. I do think Conor, though, will do solid this upcoming year. I'm not expecting him to come in and set the world on fire, but I think he will have a solid season. I think he'll have a decent run for sure in 2025. We'll see how he ends up truly doing this upcoming year and upcoming season with Juncos Hollinger. I think it's a solid move to put him in. We'll see if he can step up to the plate and run really strong with the Juncos Hollinger Racing Team in 2025. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about IndyCar. As it was announced on Wednesday, the IndyCar has officially announced the start times for 2025. Now remember, every single one of these IndyCar races is going to be on Fox in 2025. The St. Petersburg Grand Prix will go at noon Eastern. After that, Thermal Call will be at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Long Beach, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Barber, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Indy Road Course, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Indy Oval for the race, coverage will start at 10 a.m. Eastern for the Indy 500, but the race will start a couple hours after that. Detroit, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Worldwide Technology, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Road America, 3:30 Eastern. Mid-Ohio, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Iowa Race 1, 5 p.m. Eastern. Iowa Race 2, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Toronto, 2 p.m. Eastern. Laguna Seca, 3 p.m. Eastern. Portland, 3 p.m. Eastern. Milwaukee, 2 p.m. Eastern. And Nashville, the final race, will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. The big thing to notice is there's no night races this year. Every single race will be a day event on Fox. There are also some pretty big conflicts. I believe Long Beach will be going up against maybe Coda or something along those lines. I can't remember quite exactly. I think actually Thermal is going to be going up against Coda at the start of the year. Of course, the Indy Road Course, I think there's going to be some conflicts with that. The big one's Worldwide Technology. I think Le Mans is on June 15th. You've also got the Mexico race going on for NASCAR, so no IndyCar drivers probably going to end up down there with the race starting as early as it is. It's basically starting quintessentially at the same time. And there's also some other conflicts as well. The national finale, I think, goes up against one of the NASCAR races, which that's one issue I do have. There's no night races this year, and I feel like there should have been a few night races on the schedule. It trustly would have made a lot of sense to put the IndyCar race at night, considering the fact that I think a night race would work out a lot better. But it's also Fox's decision, and them ending the year earlier too is because of the NFL and all that stuff. I think they've got an interesting schedule for the year, and I do think they certainly have an interesting start time reveal especially, so it's good to see that it's been officially revealed. Glad to see everything has been officially set for 2025. And good to see that everything, like I said, is finally confirmed for the year on the schedule for IndyCar. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the ratings are. I think we'll see, because some of those will be some of the NASCAR race on FS1, while some of the IndyCar race will be on Fox, which I think is interesting for sure. I think the IndyCar schedule is certainly interesting, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Legacy Motor Club. As it was announced yesterday morning that Legacy Motor Club has officially unveiled a new logo for 2025, and they've unveiled a new rebrand once again for the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. I gotta say, I do like this logo a little bit more. It is a little more sleek. I think it does look pretty cool, and I think that's good that they've gone ahead and done that. But the big thing that no one is certainly talking about is the fact that they have pretty much confirmed that they are going to run a third car once again in 2025. Of course, we know John Hunter will be behind the wheel of the number 42 for 2025, and Eric Jones will be behind the wheel of the number 43. But it looks like the number 84 is coming back for the 2025 season. Now, Jimmy Johnson obviously is going to make select starts in that car in 2025. He will make quite a few starts throughout the 2025 season. It's unknown currently at the moment, though, if he's going to run the Daytona 500 or Mark Truex Jr. could end up running it, even though when we get to talking about the legal stuff here near the end of the episode, that may not be fully the case, and Jimmy might get behind the wheel of that car. We also may end up seeing another certain driver named Corey Hine make select starts in that car this year. I'd have to think he will get behind the wheel of the seat in 2025. But obviously changing the logo and all this stuff, they made this big teaser announcement just for a logo change. It feels like also in a way that Legacy Motor Club is not taking things fully seriously. They've hired a bunch of people. While some of them are good, they're not absolutely the greatest people to work with in the world. And a lot of these people have also been fired from their other teams in recent years. And I'm not sure how everyone at this team is going to do good. You've got Travis Mack being the crew chief for John Hunter. He's an okay crew chief, but not great. Chad Johnson's going into vehicle performance. Do you really want him in vehicle performance when he's always Mr. 4 tires? I'm not quite sure on that front. Again, I think the logo does look really good, but also you can't keep making changes at a team. You've got to be consistent at some point. Otherwise, you're going to basically start losing the interest of your team and your organization. It's going to be interesting, though, to see how this team can do in 2025. I'm not expecting this team to really bounce back, though, this upcoming year, which was really unfortunate, but I don't think this team will bounce back in the 2025 year and season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Sergio Perez. As it was officially confirmed on Wednesday afternoon that Sergio Perez will not be returning to Red Bull in 2025. This has been expected. We've been expecting that Sergio Perez was not going to be going back to the Red Bull organization for 2025, despite the fact in the middle of the summer that Sergio Perez did sign a multi-year contract agreement and extension with the team. You do have to remember that contracts can be broken in motorsports. Things can change very quickly, and teams can buy you out of your contracts, especially when you perform as bad as Sergio Perez did in the second half of this year. Sergio Perez was unfortunately the big reason why this team lost the Constructors' title. You had Max Verstappen, while the cars weren't as strong, you had Max Verstappen, who was certainly very, very competitive throughout the whole entire year. Sergio, who started the year off really, really strong, just fell off the face of the planet in the second half of the year. So what's the future for Sergio? Well, obviously, I don't know at this point in motorsports. Maybe he comes over to NASCAR and tries a Project 91 car. Obviously, with the Red Bull Association now, it would make a lot of sense. I'll throw his name in the ring. Maybe he goes to another sport down the road. I know he's not interested in going to IndyCar, which honestly, at this point, if IndyCar was an option for me, I would certainly go there. But I don't know at this point. So we'll have to see what happens to Sergio, but this was not shocking to see him not coming back to the team in 2025. So who's his replacement? Well, literally 24 hours later, they announced that Liam Lawson will be joining Red Bull and will be teammates with Max Verstappen in 2025. Now, obviously, this got a lot of backlash on social media, and a lot of fans who are fans of Yuki Tsunoda were very, very upset. While I completely understand why Yuki Tsunoda fans are upset, there is a big reason why this is happening and why it's going on. It would make no sense for Yuki Tsunoda to go there for just 1 year to Red Bull and then potentially lose their seat. Remember, they're switching manufacturers at the Red Bull and Racing Bulls group, and Yuki is associated with Honda. very, very closely. So why would you put him in a Red Bull for 1 year, right? And then basically kick him out of his seat after 1 year, unless he would leave that Honda contract. And I think Liam Lawson is a very talented driver. So like I said, I completely understand why fans of Yuki Tsunoda are upset. I get it. It's understandable. But at the same time, I know why they put him in that seat because, one, I think he is a talented driver. I think that Liam Lawson has a lot of potential and does have a lot of talent. So I think this move made sense in a way. I get why fans of the certain drivers are upset and frustrated. They don't want their drivers to lose their seats. They don't want drivers to lose where they're going. But at the same token and same time, they chose Liam Lawson. One, I think Liam is a good driver. Number two, they don't want to put Yuki in there for 1 year, which, of course, down the road could lead him going to Aston Martin. Can they get Lance Stroll out of the sport? That would be nice. Though I think that Yuki and Fernando being teammates would make a lot of sense. I think that Yuki will end up potentially going to Aston Martin down the road. And I think Liam Lawson, honestly, is a talented driver. We'll see how he can end up doing with the team in 2025. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Anthony Alfredo. Now, yesterday, Anthony Alfredo put out a very interesting, a little bit of a cryptic tweet, indicating a little bit about his 2025 plans, and his plans are fortified and getting close to being announced for 2025. Now, we know that Anthony Alfredo will not be back with our motorsports in the 2025 season, as of course Chris Wright, who's bringing a little bit of funding and sponsorship, will be at the team on a full-time basis in 2025. And with rides drying up very, very quickly and a lot of good seats being filled up for the upcoming season, we've all been kind of wondering where Anthony Alfredo could be headed in 2025. Now, if you look at the driver market currently at the moment, there are some good truck rides out there that are still available. I think there's a Nissan Motorsports truck out there. And I also do think there is that potential part-time RCR third entry, considering how close Anthony Alfredo is associated with the RCR group. It would definitely make a lot of sense for him to go there this upcoming year and season. But then, of course, there is one of the Spire trucks that hasn't been confirmed. We all thought a third driver was going there next year. That driver is going to another team that we're going to talk about here in just a short little bit. But I do think that there is one ride that some people are talking about, and I saw a few people mention this. But I did see some people saying there's been a rumor going around recently about where he may be headed. Some are talking about Young's Motorsports. Now, Young's Motorsports is a team that ran full-time in Xfinity Series competition in 2024. And this team had some decent success with Leland Honeyman this past year in this past season. And I think Anthony Alfredo going over to Young's Motorsports, especially with what I'm hearing is it could potentially be full RCR support. I think that could lead Anthony to, while not having the fastest season in the world, it could lead them having quite a bit of success in this season. So I'm thinking he could end up at Young's Motorsports in 2025. I also think there's a very good chance and possibility that he could go part-time with Beer Motorsports again. He drove part-time for the team in 2024, and I gotta say, Anthony showed out at some races this past year. He got a top 5 at Talladega, which is certainly really, really impressive. So I think he could end up at that Young's Motorsports team, though, in Xfinity competition, which I think is most likely where he's going to be headed this upcoming year and season. It's going to certainly be interesting for sure. I think he will be very, very competitive no matter where he ends up going. And I really like to see this team be very successful. I want to see him do good this upcoming year. Anthony deserves to be in a seat, in my opinion. He got the Dasher cash win. He had a pretty solid year overall in 2024. So we'll see how he ends up truly going, where he truly ends up going for the upcoming year. But I do think he'll be very competitive regardless of where he ends up going and where he ends up racing. We'll see where he ends up officially going for 2025. But like I said, I'm starting to lead toward him going to Young's Motorsports this upcoming year, because I think that's where he's going to truly end up racing for in 2025, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Parker Retzlaff. As it was announced on Wednesday that Parker Retzlaff will officially join Alpha Prime Racing in 2025, driving a number 4 car. He will take over what was originally a number 43 car, which was driven by Ryan Ellis this past year, who of course will join DGM Racing in 2025. We all, of course, knew that Parker Retzlaff would not be back with Jordan Anderson Racing for the 2025 season. There have been some talk about him potentially going to Spire Motorsports for 2025. There's also talk, though, that he was going to go to Alpha Prime Racing, and he chose probably one of the worst of the two organizations in the program. That being said, last year, Alpha Prime Racing did have a very interesting season. Brennan Poole, who will be back with Alpha Prime for 2025, actually had a really strong and a really good season this past year. Brennan Poole had a lot of top 20 finishes to start the season, and he ended up finishing 16th in the standings, which for Alpha Prime Racing Car team is super impressive. You now have got a very young and really good talent joining this team for 2025, and Brennan Poole can be there to guide him and teach them. Parker Retzlaff, while he hasn't been as amazing the last couple of years, he has proven that he can be a really good talent. Last year, he ended up getting 2 poles. And let's be real, yes, he had like 11 or 12 DNS in 2024, but I look at a lot of those DNS, and while, yes, there were definitely a lot of crashes, not caused by Parker Retzlaff. By the way, the Indianapolis crash, that wasn't caused by him, that was caused by Daniel Dye. The crash at Martinsville, that wasn't caused by Parker Retzlaff, that was caused by Sam Mayer and Josh Williams being too impatient when Parker had led laps in the race. It's not like Parker Retzlaff is an untalented driver. He's a young driver who has a lot of raw potential, and I really think that Parker Retzlaff this upcoming year will have a solid season. So, what are the realistic expectations for Parker Retzlaff in 2025? The goal should be top 20 in the points very easily. I think the goal should be top 15 in the standings. I think for both drivers of the team, Brennan Poole and Parker, they should both be aiming for top 20 in the points. And I think that could very likely happen. I expect Alpha Prime Racing, with the drivers they have this upcoming year, to have their best season they've ever had. I think that this team will be better than Jordan Anderson Racing, most likely, maybe outside of Jeff Burton. I really think that Parker is going to have a very strong season for himself. I think he will get a couple top 10s throughout the year, and I think he'll get some top 20s. I think this team will run a lot better for sure than they did this past year. Alpha Prime had some mechanical issues and gremlins throughout the season that did really affect him, and I think it did hurt this team in the long run. But then again, I think that there are some things that this team's been really doing that I think have been super smart as well. And bringing in a young talent like Parker, who I think right now is a little bit better than Ryan Ellis in my opinion, on talent basis, I think bringing Parker in, who I think's got a lot of potential to really help this program grow and develop, I think it's a great decision. Now, obviously, there was talk about him going to Spire. That's not happening. I'm starting to think that Kaz Grall could be one of the favorites for the seat, unless they're downsizing to 3 trucks, which is certainly possible. They're going to have an all-star truck for drivers like Kyle Busch, Michael McDowell, Brendan Butterbean Queen, and I believe Carson Ospar, maybe other guys like Kyle Larson and Chase, maybe Shane Van Gisbergen as well. Who knows at this point? But nonetheless, it's a great move for Parker. Hope he can have a really strong season. I think he'll be very competitive, I think he'll be very fast, and I think he definitely will be certainly quick throughout the 2025 NASCAR season. We'll see how he ends up truly doing in 2025. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Zane Smith. Now we're going to talk about the lawsuit here in just a short little bit. But basically, Bob Pockers noticed something very interesting from the lawsuit, and it surrounds Zane Smith. According to what Bob Pockers has reported, he reports that Zane Smith is still likely headed to Front Row Motorsports in 2025 in a 3rd chartered Front Row Motorsports seat. With the Stewart-Haas Racing charter and the transfer still likely going to happen, even though NASCAR is expected to go ahead and appeal, which they are going to appeal, and they're hoping for, especially with the transfer still expected to happen sometime today, they're wanting it to basically be delayed at this point. But getting back to Zane Smith at Front Row Motorsports, this has been one of the worst kept secrets in the garage over the course of the last few months. We obviously know Zane Smith will not be part of the Trackhouse Racing family for the 2025 season. Connor Daly, of course, is going to be driving the 88 for Junior Motorsports, which is being bought out by Trackhouse Racing for that seat. And then, of course, you have Ross Chastain in the 1, Shane Van Gisbergen in the 88, and Dale Suarez in the number 99 car. They got rid of Zane because, of course, Shane Van Gisbergen brings a lot of sponsorship and funding to the table, and also Shane Van Gisbergen is the most likely to get the team victories. But Zane Smith going back to Front Row makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Zane Smith had a lot of success at Farmer Motorsports back in the day. In 2022 was the first time he drove for Farmer Motorsports full time, and Zane Smith, let's be real and honest, had a really strong and a really good season with that team in 2022 with Chris Lawson being the crew chief. So good that they were able to go ahead and win the championship that year and win 4 or 5 races throughout the year and the season. 2023 was not as strong, but then he had but did also get 2 wins early in the year, and unfortunately got eliminated in the round of 8 because he was distracted and focused on trying to get set up to drive for Spire Motorsports for the 2025 season, which Michael McDowell, of course, is going to take over that seat for 2025. He'll also join teammates next year of Todd Gillen and Noah Gragson, 2 very talented drivers who showed a lot of potential last year. Todd Gillen was in the top 20 quite a bit throughout the year, and Noah Gragson early in the season showed a lot of promise and was a legit playoff contender in the early portion of the season, but because of Stewart-Haas Racing's closing, he basically fell off. He'll drive the number 4. Now, we also don't fully know what the number is going to be for Zane Smith in 2025 at this time. I am leaning toward it being the number 38. I think that's what number they're going to end up using for him in the 2025 season, which would make a lot of sense. The 38's been part of Farmer Motorsports pretty much since the beginning of the team's tenure in the sport. I think that's the number they're going to end up using this upcoming year for him. So, what are the expectations for Zane Smith at Front Row Motorsports in 2025? Realistically, I think that Zane Smith is going to be very, very competitive. I think he will have a strong chance and opportunity to compete for some top 10s. I think top 20 should be the goal throughout the year because you look at the Cup field, right? It is super, super stacked. You've got all 400 drivers of Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman. You've got RCR drivers of Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. You've got the teammates of Front Row, of course, of Noah Gragson and Todd Gillen. You've got Trackhouse drivers Ross Chastain, Shane Van Gisbergen, and of course the driver Daniel Suarez. You've got 2311 drivers Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and Riley Herbst. You've got other drivers, of course, like Josh Berry going over the Wood Brothers this season. You've got Spire drivers of Carson Ospar, Justin Haley, Michael McDowell, and you've got other teams like RFKs, Ryan Preece, Brad Keselowski, and Chris Buescher. You've got a very strong and competitive field this upcoming year and upcoming season. And I really think that Zane Smith is going to be someone that's going to be really fun to watch out for throughout 2025. Because I really do believe that Zane Smith is going to have a strong year in 2025. He showed potential in the second half of this year and is someone who deserves to be in a full-time seat. We're still waiting for official confirmation. Obviously, once the SHR transfer does end up going through, we're probably going to get an announcement on that. And I think that announcement could be coming before the end of the year, hopefully. I think they're trying to get that out before Christmas. So if they get the transfer done and NASCAR can't get the thing delayed, because NASCAR is required by the judge to go ahead and approve that transfer, I think that then it will be announced that Zane Smith is going to go to this team for 2025. Again, we're expecting Zane Smith to go to Front Row for 2025. We're still also waiting on the second Rick Ware car to be officially confirmed for next year. We are expecting most likely Corey LaJoie to get that seat for 2025. We still got the third RCR car, which Will Brown and potentially Chandler Smith is going to be a driver for the team this upcoming year. It's going to be interesting to see who they choose for the other seats before the start of the season, but we're getting close to the start of 2025, and I think once Zane Smith does get confirmed, that's going to be one of the last rides to be officially announced, and we'll wait to see all that stuff get officially confirmed for 2025, but again, Zane Smith will officially head over to Front Row once all the stuff gets through. We are expecting that Zane Smith will officially head over to Front Row once the transfer is complete for the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit. As it was confirmed on Wednesday early afternoon, we have a massive and a major win for 2311 and Front Row Motorsports. It was confirmed on Wednesday at around 12:30 Central Standard Time that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have won their preliminary injunction case and have obtained preliminary injunction to race as charter teams in 2025. They're also, according to the Judge Kenneth Bell, who's joined the case in recent months, in recent weeks especially, they are also required, though NASCAR will appeal it, they are required to basically have the SHR transfers complete, and they cannot stop those SHR transfers from being completed and being the case. This is a massive, massive win for 2311 and Front Row Motorsports that they'll be able to compete as charter teams on the track in 2025. Quintessentially, the judge also called them out in the case by basically saying that NASCAR presents monopoly power. Of all things we're talking about here, the judge calling NASCAR a monopoly and a monopsony is really, really huge. And continuing on by saying that they cannot release them from all this stuff. They can't release them from the charters. You can't do that as a monopoly, basically saying you can't sue us. They said, no, you're not allowed to do that. Judge Kenneth Bell saying that is a huge, huge win for the teams. And the teams were definitely scrambling. So there's definitely been a lot of questions to why this time around, because original Judge Frank Whitney, who had been presiding the case originally, people were asking, why did they originally let it go? Did not let it happen, but now things have changed. Well, it looks like 2311 and Front Row have presented the evidence they're going to need. Let's begin by talking about the drivers. First, Tyler Reddick. Yeah, on December 18th, which was the day that Tyler Reddick, that basically this was granted, which was 2 days ago, basically Tyler Reddick was basically told has breached a contract on November the 18th, and on December 18th, he could have become a free agent. There would have been teams that have been scrambling to pick him up for 2025 because in the contract that Tyler Reddick had signed, he had to be in a charter car, which is a 4D chess move on Tyler Reddick's part when he originally, of course, drove for Rich Schultz Racing. They were going to put him in an unchartered car. So thank you, Rich Schultz Racing, for basically putting Tyler Reddick in a charter car going forward. That was step number one to this. Continuing on, Bubba Wallace, Noah Gragson, and Corey Heim all had pretty much the same, and Riley Herbst as well, had all the same inquiries. Bubba Wallace almost could have also been a free agent, and he needed to know what was officially going on for 2025. Otherwise, he was going to potentially lose his seat because of that, despite the fact he signed a 2-year contract extension with 2311 Racing through 2026. Bubba Wallace obviously would have basically gone out, and which would have been tough for him to find a ride, so I don't know if other teams would have picked him up. Same with Noah Gragson, who signed a charter car for the season. Noah Gragson, of course, wants to get behind the wheel of the C. He will, of course, join Front Row. He was in the same position. Same for Corey Heim, who's expecting to make select starts in the car. Maybe Carlos Kurtbusch as well down the road, or maybe Haley Deegan too. But Corey Heim obviously could have been behind the wheel of that seat for a few races, the fourth car. Same with Martin Truex Jr. as well. And I believe Riley Herbst, same thing for the third full-time charter car. But it's not just the drivers. Basically, the sponsors as well. Monster Energy has sent out multiple emails that they were planning to not spend as much money for the season because of this, and Lush Travel Stop was also in the same thing. They had some sweepstakes they were planning to start sending out to a lot of people, but because of this being denied originally and not getting a preliminary injunction, they were looking to potentially leave the team. Now, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports did release their statements, thanking thanking the courts for siding with them this time around. They're excited to compete as charter teams for the 2025 season, and they're ready to go and set to go for 2025. Well, we were waiting till yesterday for NASCAR to go ahead and decide if they were going to appeal or not. Well, yesterday at around 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, NASCAR announced that they are going to appeal this decision, which isn't the most shocking and surprising thing. We all expected NASCAR was going to go ahead and appeal it. NASCAR is not basically wanting to fully go ahead and remove everything from it, which is certainly very interesting. They were looking to make some concessions, which tells me NASCAR was definitely scrambling. They said, well, they were okay with both of the charters being sent out to the teams for the upcoming season. They want to deny the Stewart-Haas Racing transfers. But then the other thing they wanted is basically the teams to not be paid the chartered money. Instead, they only want to basically give them a certain amount of money. And they want the decision to be done at some point today. They want the court filing to come through, which we could find out at some point today on that front. If we do find that out, we'll discuss it here live on the channel. What NASCAR is saying is they feel like they're going to suffer irreparable harm for basically giving out the stuff because of how much money they're going to give the other teams. Well, NASCAR, how are you suffering irreparable harm? You know who actually would have been suffering irreparable harm, NASCAR? The teams. Had you taken their charters away originally, that would have been them suffering irreparable harm. Drivers could have been on the free agent market. Now, obviously, Tyler Reddick may not have gone on the free agent market and may have stuck around, but Tyler Reddick could have been on the free agent market. That would have been bad for 2311, considering Tyler Reddick has been competing for a championship. It's also been irreparable harm to you because you would have lost 6 competitive cars. The less competitive cars you have, the less interesting the racing product is. You want competitive cars on the racetrack. That is the most important thing. And if you give out charters to less competitive teams and organizations, or just keep the charters and don't let them get them, that is for you suffering irreparable harm, in my opinion. So NASCAR is trying to play this game, it seems like, where they feel like that they're being the ones that are suffering the true irreparable harm, which I completely disagree. I said this in the original video. This is a big win for the teams, and now NASCAR has a couple options here. Like I said, they're scrambling right now. They're basically appealing not on every little bit of detail. They basically don't want the SHR transfers to go through, which I think is completely stupid because that's irreparable harm and it's an affidavit that Joe Custer can basically get involved in. But here's another thing I find very interesting. Could other teams join this lawsuit now? Could Richard Childress Racing join the lawsuit? We know Richard Childress basically called it a communist regime with how they handle things. So maybe we see Richard Childress Racing join the lawsuit down the road. That could certainly be a possibility. What about other teams? I don't think Brad's going to join. I don't think that Justin Marks is going to join. But what about Hendrick Motorsports? What about Joe Gibbs Racing? Could other teams join the lawsuit down the road? That is certainly very, very interesting. But the big step toward everything being set for the teams is the fact that they are going to have their charters for this upcoming season. And according to what's also been reported, the judge wants this whole thing wrapped up before the 2026 season. So they're getting the things moving really, really quickly. And I think throughout 2025, because I think what NASCAR doesn't want, they don't want to open their books. That's one thing they've always stated. They never want to really open their books because they're a private company. So that's one thing to watch out for through this. Is one of the reasons why I think they're appealing this and fighting this is they do not want to go to Discovery and open their books. Because if they open their books, there is going to be a lot of very spicy information that's going to come out, and I think a lot of interesting things are going to come out and be revealed. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of this plays out, but again, it's a big win for 23 Front Row because they have their charters for this upcoming year and upcoming season. We'll see how things end up truly going for 2025, and we'll see how things go, but as of now, they will have chartered entries for the 2025 season, which is a big win for the teams, in my honest opinion. So, that is good for today's Law NASCAR News and Motorsports News episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What thoughts about 23 Front Row getting their charters for next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Zane Smith likely going to Front Row? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This may be the final full news video of 2025, but there also could still be a lot of news and breaks for the end of the year. If not, you will see probably 1 or 2 more of these videos before the end of the year. Tomorrow on the channel, you'll likely see a special video maybe on looking at certain things for sure. I'll probably put a poll out on my YouTube channel side we're putting out. Sunday, we'll have Truck Series predictions dropping, and maybe doing a video on 10 cities that could host a street race in the future. And there's some other really good content that I've planned to be coming out very soon on the channel that I think you guys are really going to enjoy as we get closer to Christmas. We'll be looking at the Cup lineup very soon. We'll also be doing the ranking where I think every driver will finish in the season for 2025, and some other great content is dropping for the end of the year as well. And people like Haley Ding and Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Lawrence, Kurt Busch, all that kind of stuff, and Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.